This absolute NPC somehow goes his entire life without getting a single girlfriend, and then gets hired to tutor 5 rich sisters who are all academically fighting for last place. But instead of fixing their grades, this dude accidentally makes every single one of them fall for him. Meanwhile, some of you can't even get a text back from one person. The story starts with a beautiful girl standing in a wedding dress, holding flowers, and looking ready to marry the luckiest guy on earth. Or maybe the most confused guy on earth. A moment later, we find out this is actually a dream as our boy Futaro Yusuji suddenly wakes up. A woman tells him that his bride is waiting, causing Futaro to remember the day he first met her. And just like that, we're sent 5 years into the past. Back then, Futaro was doing what he does best, being alone. He's standing in the school cafeteria ordering food. After getting his meal, he immediately starts calculating the total cost and gets excited because it's cheap and even includes free water. Bro gets more excited over discounts than birthdays. As he walks away, other students start gossiping. They point out that the school's top student is once again eating lunch by himself, but Futaro couldn't care less. At this point, loneliness isn't a problem for him. It's a lifestyle. He sits down at his usual table, but before he can start eating, another tray suddenly lands right in front of him. Futaro looks up and sees a girl sitting across from him. And just like that, the entire cafeteria enters panic mode. Everyone starts staring because nobody willingly sits with Futaro. The students begin wondering who this mysterious girl is, while Futaro himself is wondering how this situation even happened. A flashback shows us what happened a few minutes earlier. Both of them wanted the same seat. Back in the present, people continue staring at them. Futaro starts feeling uncomfortable while the girl across from him turns bright red. Our boy immediately regrets not walking away earlier because now the whole cafeteria is treating this like the first episode of a romance anime. Which, to be fair, it kind of is. The girl notices Futaro studying while eating and assumes his grades must be terrible, so she grabs his paper to check. One look later and she completely freezes. The score says 100 out of 100. A perfect score. The girl looks absolutely shocked and asks if those grades are real. Apparently she wasn't expecting the cafeteria goblin to be a genius. After recovering from the shock, she suddenly asks Futaro to help her study, but Futaro immediately refuses and leaves. No hesitation, no consideration. Bro rejected an opportunity faster than YouTube rejects small creators. Even as he's leaving, the girl offers to share some of her food with him, and Futaro responds with the worst possible answer. He tells her she should stop eating so much or she'll get fat. Futaro's social skills just took critical damage. The girl's face instantly turns red as she calls him a terrible person. Honestly, fair enough. Later, Futaro receives a message from his little sister Reiha while hiding in the bathroom, because apparently that's where all important life decisions happen. Reiha tells him that their father found him a tutoring job. He'll be teaching a girl from his own class, and the payment is 5 times higher than normal. Futaro immediately becomes suspicious, because when something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. But Reiha reminds him that this money could finally help their family eat properly every day. And just like that, the deal becomes impossible to refuse. The next day, a transfer student arrives in Futaro's class, and guess who it is? The same girl from the cafeteria. The teacher introduces her as Itsuki Nakano. Futaro nearly falls out of his chair after seeing her. Meanwhile, the entire class immediately starts talking about how cute she is. One transfer student arrives and suddenly every guy remembers how to breathe again. Futaro tries to talk to Itsuki, but she completely ignores him. That's right, the guy who spends all day alone somehow got ghosted in real life. Later in the cafeteria, Futaro spots Itsuki again and decides he should probably apologize. A shocking display of character growth. As he follows her, he notices she's already surrounded by several guys. Itsuki then looks at Futaro and casually asks if he has no friends at all. And just like that, fatality. Honestly, that insult hit harder than most anime fight scenes. Before Futaro can recover, another girl suddenly appears and starts teasing him. She asks if he has a crush on Itsuki. The moment she says that, Futaro starts panicking like somebody just leaked his search history. The girl then threatens to tell Itsuki everything. Futaro immediately grabs her hand and begs her not to. At this point, random girls keep appearing around him every few minutes. Bro's life transformed from nobody talks to me to why are there so many women here, overnight. Meanwhile, some of you would consider eye contact a relationship milestone. Later, Futaro keeps thinking about all this weirdness when another girl suddenly appears inches away from his face. My guy almost unlocked a heart attack achievement. This girl turns out to be the student whose test paper had a giant 0 on it. She explains that she accidentally dropped Futaro's exam paper earlier. Futaro points out that scoring 0 is pretty embarrassing, but instead of getting upset, she politely thanks him. She's surprisingly nice for someone currently losing a fight against basic education. A little later, we see Itsuki once again consuming enough food to feed an entire sports team. Seriously, this girl treats restaurants like all-you-can-eat challenges. Futaro secretly watches her from a distance, but before he can do anything, another girl suddenly appears and accuses him of stalking them. Futaro instantly starts defending himself. Bro starts begging her not to call the police before she even mentions the police. That's how suspicious he looked. Eventually, Futaro discovers the giant apartment building where Itsuki lives. While standing outside, a scary-looking but surprisingly cute cute girl confronts him and asks what he's doing there. Futaro gets nervous and blurts out the dumbest possible answer. He claims he lives there too, which would have worked if another girl hadn't immediately exposed his lie. Caught red-handed, Futaro runs into the building at full speed. He looks less like a tutor and more like a criminal escaping a GTA wanted level. Inside, he spots Atsuki entering an elevator. Futaro rushes after her and follows her all the way to the 30th floor. When he finally reaches her apartment, he reveals the truth. He's the tutor who was hired to teach her. Atsuki is completely shocked. Then she casually says she hates studying, and she hates him too. Talk about a warm welcome. Futaro responds by saying he hates difficult situations as well. Unfortunately for him, difficult situations seem to be his permanent address. Still, he refuses to quit because this job is basically keeping his family alive. Then suddenly every girl he met earlier starts showing up one after another, and Futaro's brain completely crashes. Because these girls aren't friends, they're quintuplets. The game has officially gone from normal difficulty to impossible mode. The sisters introduce themselves. First is Miku, the quiet history nerd. This girl knows more historical warlords than actual living people. Then there's Nino. She looks like she'd commit several felonies before breakfast if somebody annoyed her enough. Next is Yatsuba, a walking bundle of energy who probably drinks caffeine for relaxation. Then comes Ichika, the teasing big sister type who enjoys watching people suffer for entertainment. And finally, there's Atsuki, a girl whose appetite could probably bankrupt a buffet. Futaro officially introduces himself as their tutor. Unfortunately, nobody cares. The sisters completely ignore him. When he tries gathering everyone to study, each sister finds her own unique way to make his life miserable. One flat out refuses, one falls asleep, one avoids studying entirely, and another treats the whole thing like a comedy show. Futaro slowly realizes he's accepted the hardest tutoring job in human history. At one point, Nino secretly puts sleeping pills in his drink. And just like that, our boy gets sent to the Shadow Realm. The next thing Futaro knows, he wakes up inside a taxi outside his house. After piecing things together, he realizes exactly what happened. The taxi driver asks for payment, which is unfortunate because Futaro's wallet is experiencing extreme poverty. Thankfully, Itsuki pays the fare for him. She tells him it'd be better if he stopped coming back, but Futaro refuses. Bro needs that paycheck more than oxygen. Soon after, we finally meet Futaro's adorable little sister, Reiha. And unlike literally everyone else in this anime, she's nice. Reiha immediately invites Itsuki inside for dinner. Honestly, Reiha is carrying this family emotionally, socially, and spiritually. During dinner, everyone starts having fun together. The atmosphere becomes surprisingly warm, and little by little, Itsuki starts opening up to Futaro's family. After dinner, Futaro walks Itsuki outside. That's when she finally admits something important. Despite everything she said before, she actually wants to study. She wants to graduate properly. And for the first time, Futaro realizes there might still be hope for this disaster of a tutoring job. Hearing that, Futaro gets genuinely excited. For the first time, one of these girls actually wants to study. That's like finding a legendary Pokemon in your backyard. He promises Itsuki that starting tomorrow, they'll take tutoring seriously. The next day, Futaro gathers all 5 sisters together. Well, gathers might be a strong word. It's more like trying to herd 5 cats with completely different personalities. Futaro tells them that if they truly believe they don't need a tutor, then they can prove it. All they have to do is pass a test. If they succeed, he'll leave them alone forever. The sisters accept the challenge. A little later, they proudly hand in their answers. After checking the results, Futaro announces that they scored a perfect 100. The girls immediately start celebrating. Unfortunately, Futaro isn't finished talking. That 100 points was their combined score, not individual. Combined, all 5 sisters together barely managed to scrape together enough brain cells to pass one test. The celebration dies instantly, and before Futaro can say another word, the sisters make a tactical retreat, also known as running away. The following morning, Futaro is walking to school when an insanely expensive car pulls up beside him. The quintuplets step out looking like celebrities arriving at a movie premiere. Meanwhile, Futaro is out here surviving on cafeteria discounts, free water, and pure determination. The wealth gap has never been more visible. Futaro tells them they don't need to worry about him. Nino immediately responds that they were never worried in the first place. Damn, she didn't even hesitate. That roast came with factory settings. Trying to get back on topic, Futaro reminds them about the upcoming exams. Then he asks a simple history question. Instantly, everybody freezes. The sisters look like their brains just disconnected from the server. Itsuki thinks as hard as she can, and still comes up with absolutely nothing. Later, Futaro finds Miku sitting alone in the cafeteria. He tries talking to her, but but she acts cold while casually sipping some mysterious drink. She looks less like a student and more like an anime character who gives side quests. Suddenly, Ichika joins the conversation. She tells Futaro to stop bothering her sisters. According to her, nobody wants to spend their high school years studying all day. People should be having fun, making memories, and maybe falling in love. Futaro immediately rejects the entire concept. He says love is pointless and only wastes time. That's exactly the kind of thing someone says right before a romance anime destroys their life. Yotsuba then jokingly asks Miku if she likes someone. The moment she hears that question, Mika completely freezes. Later that day, Futaro finds a letter sitting on his desk. It's from Miku. She wants to meet him alone on the rooftop. The second Futaro reads those words, his imagination starts running wild. Bro instantly skips 20 episodes ahead. He's already planning the confession scene. He's hearing wedding bells. He's naming future children. Meanwhile, Mika hasn't even said a single word yet. When Futaro arrives on the rooftop, Miku nervously tells him she has something important to say. Futaro is internally losing his mind. He starts remembering everything Ichika said about love. His heart is racing. His palms are sweating. His anime protagonist senses are activated. Then Miku finally says the name of the person she likes. Futaro gets confused immediately, because he has absolutely no clue who she's talking about. Turns out, she's not confessing. She's talking about a historical warlord. My boy created an entire romance arc in his head only to get smacked by Japanese history. That's rough. As Mika starts leaving, her phone accidentally falls onto the ground. Futaro picks it up, and then accidentally sees her wallpaper. It's completely filled with pictures of old Japanese generals. Not singers, not actors, not anime boys, generals. Miku instantly turns bright red. Then she gives Futaro a death stare powerful enough to lower his life expectancy. She quickly covers her face in embarrassment. Miku explains that while other girls were obsessed with celebrities, she always preferred famous military leaders and historical figures. Honestly, that's probably the most Miku thing ever. As they're leaving the rooftop, Miku buys Futaro a drink from a vending machine. Then she says some super specific historical reference. Unfortunately, it flies over Futaro's head so hard it might have entered another country. Miku smirks and tells him he still knows nothing. And for some reason, Futaro takes that personally. Bro reacted like she just insulted his entire family tree. That night, Futaro heads straight to the library. And when I say library, I mean he practically moves in. He borrows a mountain of history books and starts studying ancient warlords with the dedication of a man preparing for the final boss battle. The next day, Futaro confidently approaches Miku. This time he's ready, or at least he thinks he is. Miku immediately starts firing history questions at him. Hard questions, really hard questions, but somehow Futaro keeps answering every single one correctly. The man spent one night studying and suddenly became a history DLC character. Then, without warning, Miku suddenly runs away. And naturally, Futaro starts chasing her across the school. What follows is probably the world's first educational action scene. Mika keeps asking history questions while sprinting through hallways. Futaro keeps answering while trying not to collapse. At this point, these two aren't studying anymore. They're speedrunning a history exam. Eventually both of them get exhausted and sit down to rest. Futaro goes to buy drinks. When he comes back, he finally admits the truth. He spent all night studying history just so he could understand the things Miku likes. Miku was genuinely surprised. Probably because nobody has ever put that much effort into understanding her interests before. She asks if he told her sisters about her unusual hobby. Futaro says no. She asked him to keep it secret, so he kept his word. Simple as that. Miku then opens up a little. She admits she feels inferior compared to her sisters. She thinks she's not particularly talented or special, and honestly, that's kind of sad, because sometimes the quietest people are the ones carrying the biggest insecurities. Futaro immediately points something out. During the test, Miku scored the highest in history. That means she's already good at something. He explains that every sister has different strengths, and if they all help each other and study together, passing their exams won't be impossible. Then Futaro says something that hits Miku right in the heart. He tells her that if her sisters can do the things she can do, then she can also learn to do the things they can do. For the first time in a long while, Mika starts believing in herself. Just a little, but sometimes that's all it takes. The next day, Yotsuba is actually studying. I know, I was shocked too. Even Futaro looks confused. Soon after, Miku arrives carrying another history book, and both Futaro and Yotsuba just stare at her. Yesterday she barely wanted anything to do with tutoring. Now she's voluntarily studying. Character development has entered the chat. Yotsuba quietly leans over and asks Miku if something special is happening between her and Futaro. Then she asks the question everyone's thinking. Does she actually like him? Meanwhile, outside the Nakano apartment building, Futaro is having his own struggle. He's standing outside yelling because he can't get inside. This genius forgot one small detail. The building has an electronic lock. A few moments later, Nino walks over and asks if he's never seen modern technology before. She casually scans her card. The door instantly opens. Futaro immediately pretends he already knew that. Classic. The confidence of a man who's completely wrong. Once inside, Futaro starts gathering the sisters for another study session. Somehow, everyone eventually ends up downstairs. Yotsuba excitedly announces that they should finally get serious about studying. Itsuki also says she wants to improve on her own instead of depending on everyone else. For one beautiful moment, it looks like things are finally coming together. Then reality arrives. Yotsuba suddenly gets asked to help another basketball team. Apparently she's good at every sport ever invented. At this point I'm convinced she could accidentally qualify for the Olympics. She asks Futaro if it's okay for her to help them, and Futaro forces out a smile while watching yet another student escape tutoring. A few moments later, Ichika decides she'd rather study at the library, and leaves too. Amazing. The study group lasted about as long as free trial software. Within minutes, everyone disappears. Soon only Futaro, Miku, Nino, and Itsuki remain. Itsuki looks around and points out the obvious. Almost nobody is left. Futaro's tutoring career is currently falling apart faster than a cheap internet connection during a thunderstorm. Meanwhile, Nino starts insulting Miku. She calls her plain, boring, and basically says she has no presence. Miku remains surprisingly calm. She simply replies that appearances aren't what matter most. What's important is a person's heart. Unfortunately, Nino isn't interested in hearing life lessons today. The argument quickly starts escalating, and before long, the two sisters are openly fighting. Naturally, Futaro tries to step in before this turns into a full-scale sibling war. Futaro tries to stop the argument before it gets worse. Unfortunately, Nino suddenly changes the subject and challenges Miku to a cooking competition. Because apparently academic failure wasn't enough chaos for one day, Futaro immediately begs her not to waste more time. But Nino insists it'll be quick. Famous last words. Soon, both sisters start cooking, and the difference is immediately obvious. Nino's dish looks absolutely incredible, like something straight out of a five-star restaurant. Meanwhile, Miku's food looks like it lost a brutal battle against a frying pan and never recovered. Even the ingredients look traumatized. Futaro takes one look at both dishes and quietly begins preparing his final will. Nino confidently says he doesn't even need to taste Miku's food. The winner is obvious. But somehow, Futaro gathers enough courage to try both. Honestly, this required more bravery than most anime protagonists show in battle. After tasting them, he shocks everyone. He says they're actually pretty close. Almost equal. Nino immediately calls Cap. There is no way she believes that. But then she notices something. Mika looks genuinely happy. And for once, Nino quietly drops the argument and walks away. A rare Nino peace treaty. Later, Futaro and Miku end up washing dishes together. During their conversation, Futaro admits something. He doesn't think he'll ever get along with Nino. Miku tells him that's not true. He just hasn't figured out the right way to approach her yet. Basically, Nino is one giant boss battle and Futaro still hasn't learned the attack patterns. Eventually, Futaro leaves the apartment. Or at least he tries to. As soon as he gets outside, the automatic gate locks behind him. That's when he realizes he forgot his entry card upstairs. Congratulations, another Futaro disaster. He calls Miku for help, but Miku says she's currently taking a bath and can't bring it right away. So Futaro decides to wait near the entrance. A little later, he finally gets back inside. As he's walking through the apartment, he spots a girl drying her hair. Naturally, he assumes it's Miku, because apparently all five sisters looking identical still hasn't registered in his brain. Thinking it's no big deal, Futaro quietly tries grabbing his card and sneaking away unnoticed. Then reality punches him in the face. It's not Miku, it's Nino. The moment he realizes this, his soul almost disconnects from the server. Nino notices him and asks for help finding her contact lenses. So Futaro starts helping, and that's when fate decides to ruin his day again. While searching around, he accidentally stumbles into an incredibly awkward situation. The kind of situation that would get clipped out of context and destroy your reputation forever. Futaro immediately tries escaping, but before he can leave, Nino asks if he's still angry at her. She starts complaining that all of this is really her father's fault. After all, he's the one who hired Futaro and dragged him into their lives. As they're talking, Futaro suddenly notices a stack of books about to fall directly onto Nino. Without thinking, he jumps forward and shields her. The books crash down. Nino is safe, but unfortunately, the angle looks unbelievably suspicious. You already know where this is going. At that exact moment, Ichika secretly takes a picture. And just like that, Futaro's life is over. Or so he thinks. The next scene feels less like an anime and more like a courtroom drama. Itsuki becomes the judge. Ichika becomes the prosecutor. And Futaro is sitting there like a man being tried for crimes against humanity. Ichika presents the photo as evidence. The prosecution rests. She accuses Futaro of carefully planning the entire thing. Meanwhile, Futaro is fighting for his life trying to explain what actually happened. Nino isn't helping either. She demands that Futaro should never be allowed inside the apartment again. At this point, the defense has no witnesses. Then Miku steps forward. She says the situation isn't entirely Futaro's fault, and immediately Nino activates maximum teasing mode. She accuses Miku of defending him because she likes him. The moment those words leave her mouth, another sister argument begins. These girls can start a fight faster than Twitter. Meanwhile, Futaro sits there silently questioning every life choice that brought him to this apartment. Nino continues telling her version of the story. According to her, she had just finished taking a bath when Futaro suddenly attacked her, which is technically not what happened, but facts are optional when Nino is embarrassed. Thankfully, Itsuki notices something important in the photo: the fallen books. After taking a closer look, she realizes Futaro wasn't attacking Nino at all. He was actually protecting her. One by one, everyone finally understands the misunderstanding. Everyone except Nino, because admitting she was wrong would probably cause a dimensional collapse. Instead, she gets embarrassed and runs outside. A little later, Futaro receives a message from Reiha and starts preparing to head home. Before leaving, he notices Nino sitting outside by herself. At first, he decides not to get involved. Family drama is dangerous territory, and sits next to Nino anyway. Bro's survival instincts are officially broken. The two sit there quietly for a while. Nino starts complaining about studying, school, and pretty much everything else. At one point, she even admits that she sometimes hates her sisters. But Futaro catches something interesting. Earlier, Nino referred to the apartment as our home, and that tells him everything he needs to know. He points out that someone who truly didn't care wouldn't call it home. No matter how much she argues with them, she obviously loves her sisters. Futaro explains that fighting with siblings is normal. A few moments later, Mika comes outside looking for Nino. When she notices Futaro sitting there too, she suddenly remembers the earlier misunderstanding. Her face immediately turns red. Then she grabs Nino and drags her away before anyone can say another word. At this point, Futaro's job isn't tutoring anymore. Later, Futaro finally gets something he hasn't had in forever: a peaceful day at home. No quintuplets, no arguments, no accusations, no surprise attacks, just him and his books. He sits down with complete determination, opens his study materials, and gets ready to focus for approximately 5 seconds, because almost immediately, his thoughts drift back to the Nakano sisters. Instead of studying, he keeps thinking about how he's supposed to teach those 5 academic disasters. The man is so distracted that he eventually screams in frustration. Congratulations, the quintuplets have achieved permanent residence in his brain. Right then, someone knocks on the door. Futaro opens it and finds Itsuki standing outside. She says she came to give him something, then she hands him his payment for the last 2 days. The moment Reiha sees money, she gets excited. She immediately runs to tell their father that Futaro isn't completely useless after all. Now that's sibling support. No compliments, just financial validation. However, Futaro refuses to take the money. He says he hasn't actually taught the sisters anything yet. From his perspective, he hasn't earned it. Itsuki disagrees. She explains that even if their grades haven't improved, he's already changing the girls little by little, and because of that, she believes he deserves the payment. Futaro stares at the money like a starving man looking at an all-you-can-eat buffet. For a second, I'm pretty sure he saw angels. Then he asks Itsuki if she wants anything in return. Cut to the next scene, and somehow they're all hanging out at a recreation center. Classic anime logic. Reiha is having the absolute time of her life. Meanwhile, Futaro immediately asks Itsuki why she even agreed to come. A flashback reveals the answer. Reiha invited her. That's it. That's the whole reason. When Futaro asks why she didn't refuse, Itsuki simply says Reiha was too cute to say no to. Honestly, fair enough. Nobody in this anime can resist Reiha. She's too powerful. Later, Reiha asks everyone to take a group photo. Futaro instantly refuses, because apparently this man treats happiness like it's a dangerous chemical substance. Itsuki tells him that if he really wants Reiha to enjoy the day, then he should participate properly. Eventually, Futaro gives in. The photo gets taken, and Reiha excitedly says it looks just like a real family picture. The moment she says that, both Futaro and Itsuki become incredibly awkward. Neither of them knows how to respond, but secretly, they're both happy seeing Reiha smile. It's actually a really wholesome moment. Don't get used to it. A few minutes later, Futaro asks the question he's been dreading. Did the sisters prepare for the upcoming exams? The second Itsuki hears that question, she starts walking away suspiciously. Very suspiciously. The kind of suspiciously that instantly answers the question. Futaro follows her, because deep down, he already knows the truth. Nobody studied. Not a single page. Not a single chapter. Not a single brain cell was activated. And just as Futaro is preparing to suffer another mental breakdown, Reiha excitedly announces that she wants to watch the festival fireworks. Right after Reiha mentions the fireworks, all 5 sisters suddenly show up wearing yukatas, and Futaro's brain immediately blue screens. Bro was not prepared for this update. The quintuplets somehow become 10 times prettier overnight. Meanwhile, Futaro is standing there trying to process what he's seeing like an old old computer loading too many tabs. Yotsuba excitedly asks if everyone can watch the fireworks together. Then Reiha activates her ultimate weapon, the puppy eyes. Not normal puppy eyes, legendary tier puppy eyes. The kind that could convince a bank to give out free loans. Futaro immediately loses the battle, but before agreeing, he gives the sisters one condition: finish your homework first. Surprisingly, they actually do it. The festival finally begins, and everyone is excited. Even Nino can't believe they somehow completed all their assignments. Taro watches the sisters running around happily. For the first time, he notices how important this festival really is to them. They're not thinking about exams, they're not arguing, they're just enjoying themselves, and somehow that's nice to see.